All right, so hello everybody. It is 7:06 a.m. Let's map out some trades together. I have put a link to my YouTube video up in the chat in the alerts tab. So it's trade setups for BABA, Tesla this morning. And so let's go ahead and add them to our watch list. So we're going to go over here to watch lists. And this was my call out from the other day, which was SMCI and Tesla again. So I'm just going to delete these here. And we will add our two new ones, which is BABA with a comma and then Tesla. So we're adding those two there. And I've got a whole bunch of targets that are here. So when we map these out, we need specific levels that we're going to look at. So I'm looking at BABA here. If I click on that, what we're looking at here is we have a big impulse back up, more prints, right? And then we're moving up. This is really strong. We have increasing volume, things like that. That's strong. So looking at the daily chart, the higher time frame, that's great. We can have a pullback to this 4, and then if we break below the 8, and then this 4 and 8 closed, then, you know, that's more of a trend change. So we look at this first, right? And so in the video, if we watch that, we'll just click and add some more prints to this. So this is looking good. If we scroll back here and we look at the bigger picture, this is kind of a double top. This is resistance here. We've made a higher high now. So this was huge. So we do have the chance to run looking backwards on that. And the benefit here is that we do have these additional prints. So yesterday was the 12th and there was a nice 500,000 print. I can reduce this to see if there was anything under 100. No, and they were bigger. And so this is taken off quite nicely. So in this, then we look at the 5 minutes. I'm going to click a plus. We'll look at the 5 minute. Now here we have pivots and cams already. And when we're looking at this pre-market, so we've already looked at the daily chart. And so now what we're doing is we're going from, you know, like, what is it, 85 candles, 85 5-minute candles in a day, something like that. And then all of these candles together make up the daily candle. So what we're looking for is we know we're bullish. So if we're going to continue to be bullish, like, for example, Alibaba has a ATR, 14-day ATR of $4.25. Which means that in the last 14 days, if you take the high and the low of each day, add them all up and divide them by 14, we get $4.25. And so we can expect on average that from our current price of $119.25, we're going to go $4. So about 124, 125, right? So here, when we're looking at this structure, we can see these impulse moves up, down, up, but then these also make support and resistance. So we see this here. We see this here like this. So we have this here. So we see that this is pretty much a double top. And so when we're thinking about this, it's like, okay, well, we just have to be patient and we have to get above this level, right? So from our current price, this is a downward trend. So we would actually have to break above 119.64, 120, right? 120 is a major level. And then we've got this R1 up to 120.44. So the R1s, R2s, R3s are really, really strong. So we do have that initial 50-cent move there. And then if we pop up, break through, hit this again, even if we break down, increasing volume, breaking again, well, then we've got a nice trade to 121 and we manage our levels accordingly. Okay, so if we're going down, right, if we're looking at this, we got to look at what's happened in the past. We see this. So this is a line in the sand here, this one, right, this green line, 118.77. So if we break below that, well, we've got a nice pocket down here to 118, 117.89. And then we just trade it level to level there. So when we're mapping these out, when we have our trade setups, we map out the different areas where there'll be support and resistance. That doesn't mean you have to get out, but it might be a good idea to scale at the major levels. Say, for example, 120 is a major level, 117.50 is a major level, things like that. But when we see stuff like this, 117.89 or the pivot, 117.69, it's like, well, I'm not going to wait for the 50 cents, right? Because these are like driving right into a barrier, knowing that they're coming. Okay, so there's that for this one. And so that sort of strategy is what we're using, right? Looking at the higher time frame and then at the lower time frame. And as Taz teaches you, it's broccoli. If we look at these sorts of movements, 1, 2, 3, right? That's a wing. Or this could be a 1, a 2, 3 higher up. But then if we look at the daily chart, you see the similar sorts of things. Only, 1, 2, 3. And then back, now this is a double top, and then you actually see the reversal, 1, 2, 3. So with these, when we're planning these as well, especially for entries, you have the sort of waves, and the waves come in 3s or 5s. The V-shape recovery is rare, but we have this pullback, higher high, pullback, and this is healthy, right? Because you're going to have profit taking at these levels. And just like us, we've already planned to get out at these levels anyway, and everybody else is doing it. You're cutting the line and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and add it to our watch list here. So we have BABA. We're bullish above 119.25. Target 119.66, 120, 120.44, 99, 121.50, 50. Now, and then we'll be bearish below 117.44, 117, 116.50, 16, 115, 67, 115. So you see what I'm doing here. The odd numbers, so 117.44. When that's a level. So if it was 117.50, but if you're coming down and there's support at 117.44, well, you got to get below that, right? And so we've got 115, 114.50, and then on the major price levels, we're potentially taking some profit. Even if you have a bigger pocket, but then you have these roadblocks, which are the pivots and cams. So 114.50, 114, 113.50, 113.50. I'll do 113. I can add some more targets if I want here, but this is interesting here because when you're looking at the chart, it's like, well, I'm not going to divide my trade up into 10 different scale outs, but the dollar level 117, potentially the 116.50. We have to look at the price action as well. If it's really tanking, then we might hang in there. But the $1.25, 250 levels, it's a bit of experience in doing that as well. So Tesla 346.01, we'll cover this one because that's right at a cam, and then 347.50, 348, 350, 351.25, 352.50, and 354, and then we're bearish below 341.25, 340, 339.68, 339, 338.08, 337.50. And I've got more than 9 here, so I'm just going to 327.01 will be the last target here. And when we look at this and we look to the right, we have these dark pool levels that are here. I've got this set to 5. We can put some notes on on here as well. But let's go ahead and look at this. We'll put our dark pool prints up to 10. And then, so what we have is we're going back 20 trading days, so a month essentially. And then prints over 400,000 for both. And if I choose save and we look at these here, so Tesla's at 342.94. And so we've got 329.94, 382, 386, right? So these are cumulative over 400,000. That one's 750. This one's 699. And the interesting thing, let's go ahead and look at Tesla. I liked this one in my video the other day. I figured this was seller's exhaustion, and let me show you that. Here, when I called out Tesla on this day, right? I think we traded it yesterday. I have to double check. This looked like seller's exhaustion here. And then we had this volume that was coming in, but we didn't have this candle. This was just forming. But when we look left, see now, watch the cursor, right? We've got this. Look at this point, right to there, right to there, right? So this is all mathematical. And so you might not want to swing it on the short side. The entry for the short side is increasing volume breaking down, right? You've got something like this where the 4 and the 8 are separating, increasing volume here. That might be a good shorting day. You don't want wicks on the bottom when you're going short. You don't want wicks on the top when you're going long. And so this is a good shorting opportunity as well. And the other thing too here is when we're looking at this, these massive prints up here, we can actually see it's like, look, there were massive prints there, and then we usually splash in the opposite direction. But what they did is shot it up here to sell another 2.5 million. You don't know that that's selling at the time until it actually breaks down below, right? So, and we've got to see how many days does it take before it actually starts moving. So here, this is expanded. So the selling is quite strong. So if there's profit taking, we can come up to the 4 or back up to the 8. But this looks like it might be either a short-term reversal, but we actually need this 4 and the 8 to cross back over where the pink line is above the blue line, and then we can actually start making an upward sort of move there. So there's that one. And so if we look at the 5-minute, now before we move over to that, see this 343.89 is the 4 EMA. We're close to that. We're very, very close to that. And so we can come up to this 350 and then pull back, or we could just push off of this and continue down. We can see this as a profit-taking level because psychologically everybody else is doing it. You just draw the line. It's there. So this could be profit-taking, and it could be. So that's why we're set up on both sides of the trade. And let's look at the 5-minute on this one. So here, right out of the gate, right, we need to be bullish above this area. So that's 345. So 346.01 is what I called out. We put in our watch list. 346.01 is this cam. See, 345.57 to 346. This is tight because when you get up here, we're testing this at 345.50. It's like, well, where's your stop? If we're coming up, you've got it. I don't want to give this $2 or $3 here. So we want this up here to be support. So if we come up here, break above, close above this 346.01, we wait for the candle to close, we can test it, and then increasing volume. That's usually what happens. Come back up, test, increasing volume. If we have something running like this, where you have the 4 and the 8 running together, then you must have seen a market where there was just no stopping it. And that's when the 4 and the 8 are completely stretched out evenly. There's volume coming in and you're all set, right? So we want to get above there. And then we were bearish below 341.25, right? There's this cam here. And then we've got a couple bucks, right? We got 340, there's $1 something. And then coming back down, we've got these levels and then the pivot down here. So we know in advance what our trade setups actually are going to be. And so we can watch this with the watch list. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you with the watch list is we have alerts here. And we can manage alerts up here. We'll talk about that in a second. But with our alerts on BABA, well, on any of them, I can come up here and say, I want to know in advance if we're bullish above our level or bearish below. Now, this gives us, like, say, for example, we're bullish above 119.25, right? But you don't want to wait till 119.25 to be alerted, because it's like there's your entry point. So what we have is a default threshold of 1/8, 12 cents. And you can adjust this for your alert. And so what this says is alert will be triggered when the price is above 119.13, right? So that gives you some time to have your trade set up, and below 117.56. So if we were below 117.44, then this gives us some time to get in. I'm just going to choose save. And then we've got Tesla, and here we'll do the same thing. Now, Tesla, we could say, well, let's give it 50 cents. Let's give it 50 cents there. And then this is going to let us know at 345.51 and below 341.75. That's great. And that gives us some time to get ready, because this one moves, right? The ATR was 21 bucks on it. So we'll choose save on that. Let's go ahead and look at our alerts. So here we can make a manual alert. We'll talk about that later. We're doing our pre-market stuff right now. So what we're doing is we've got our trade set up, we've got our plan, and we don't want to miss this. When I started trading and I didn't have something like this, the block trade indicator can be crazy, right? In the pre-market, and you're trying to map out 7, 8, 10 things, and then you can't manage all of them. I can't personally. I can't manage 10 entries at a time. So something like this is helpful. If I had mapped out 4 or 5 or 6 stocks that I wanted to trade for the day, then I want to be able to know when they're set up. So I could say, for example, with my pockets, if I wanted to go one step further, I could say, okay, if BABA breaks above my price, 119.25, I'll buy the 120, maybe the 122 calls, something like that. If its ATR is $4 or $5, depending on how strong it is, and looking at the options, right? This called this out because the stock is good, and I'm not sure how good the BABA and Tesla options are. So depending on what you're trading, this might not be a great pick for you. But if we're bullish above 119.25, and then we've got to get to 120, you could buy the 120, 121, 122 calls, something like that. And then Tesla can really move. So anybody that's looked at the pricing on Tesla, those options are very expensive because of the volatility. So if we're getting in at 346, we might want to trade a 375 or a 360, something like that, to make it a little more reasonable. But we're going to check the delta on that. So back to our alerts. Since we've set these up, and we go to our alerts. So these are the ones we set up. There's 2 for each stock. Now this tells us that our watch list is February 10th to the 14th for Tesla. So it actually says, where is this alert actually configured? If it's just something that you made manually, you don't have this title. But this is Tesla below 341.75, and it tells you that it's going to expire in 1 month. Now, this is set to trigger once it's pending and it hasn't triggered. Unlike something like this, this is one that I've got. I did this one yesterday. This one triggered yesterday, and it's recurring every hour. I'm just going to delete that one. So what we'll do here is we'll edit these, and I want this one above 341.75, but I want this to remind me every 15 minutes. And I'll choose update. So now what this does is it switches to recurring. And see, we got this notification. Price is above 341.75. Now, in 15 minutes, it'll check again. And we can manage these. And so I will do this again. So this one will be below. And then we'll set this for 15 minutes. And then Baba, we'll do that one. Above 15 minutes. I know since I'm talking on the mic, this might drive me crazy. And then this one will be below every time. Okay, 15 minutes. Update. Oh, and this one here. I was interested in the TQQQ. There was a 5.6 million print at 87.75. We'll look at that and see. So when you're notified about the alerts, you actually get the notifications here, and then let me check my email. Okay, so I'll just pop up an email so we can see. So alert triggered, Bob is below 117.56, and it tells you that it's been triggered, and you see that we're getting the notifications in the window. And okay, so we've got these going. Now with the alerts, you can have up to 150 of them that it tracks all the time. And then the notifications, you can delete all of your notifications or mark them as red. So like this, and notice how they just go black. So anything that's shaded in are ones that you haven't addressed. You have the settings here to send you an email if you want that to happen as well. So we've got our alerts here, and then we're going to be reminded every time for that. Oh, and Tio's in the room. Hey, Tio. So you watch the pre-market videos. Okay, would you be willing to post publicly those daily in Moby? Would you be willing to post publicly those daily in Moby based on those pre-market trades? Oh, you're both lurking. Yeah, well, no, that's okay. I don't sure if I'm having a brain fart. I don't understand the question. Oh, I see what you're saying. Ah, okay. What you have on the screen. All right. So what you're asking for is if I did this, and we'll do this, and then I'll see if I can post this in the room as an alert. Like that. Is that that's what you meant to you? Oh no, that's fantastic. No, well, I can do it this way. Yeah, that's no problem. It only takes me probably 2 minutes to do. And if you're happy, Tio, then I'm happy. So it's worth it, right? so there we have it. Okay, so one thing that I was watching in the market, and you can make alerts for anything that you like. So when we have the large prints that come in, and we look at, I looked at TQQQ, right? There was this 5.6 million print. Look at this one. I'm going to blink it at you. See that on the screen? I'm clicking on and off. 5.6 million. And then these other ones. So I've got this set anything over 500K. And then, okay, so what we did, and this is where the dark pool stuff is phenomenal, and this is something I really wanted to do with Remora, but I wasn't able to do it. This will be improve over time, is when I was trading before, I would take all of these trades and I would manually add them to my chart, right? Like it was really painful because I was doing so much work in deciding if I was going to swing trade something or not. And so when we started developing this, it's like we have to have a chart. And when I click on a print, it better go on the chart. Like that's a deal breaker for me if we can't do it, because I would spend 30 minutes on a stock and then, no, I'm not going to trade it. So, oh, is Paul teaching today? Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, well, have fun, Tio. I'm sure you'll learn something. I know nothing about SPX, so I'll ask you later. We'll see who's still here. Leslie's here and Otis is here. Okay, great. So with this, the TQQQ, actually, they pay a dividend. This one here, if you're going to look up here, if you hover over the name of the company, it actually tells you what it does. It says the fund invests in financial instruments that ProShares believes in combination should produce daily returns consistent with the target. So this one, I think, I'm not sure if it's a 2-to-1. It didn't say exactly, but it says the index includes 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial companies listed on the NASDAQ. So that's this one, and it pays a dividend. So it moves quicker, but this was interesting, is that this was 87.99. And on the bigger picture, I'm getting better at spotting this sort of stuff, right? On the bigger picture, you see where the prints are and where the support and resistance is, right? Millions, 5 million, 10, that's 13 million here. And we're coming up and we're pulling back. And I know Taz teaches fibs and stuff like that, right? But when you're doing this, you come back and you've got this ratio number. This is probably a 38.2 or maybe a 50. That's probably a 38.2. And you've got all of this. Now remember, it usually splashes in the opposite direction. If you see it just hit something and then take right off, it's like there's got to be more prints, right? Like it's like cockroaches. There's never just one. And so I've never seen it really where there's just one print and then everything goes crazy. I'm sure it's happened, but it's rare. I haven't seen it. So when we see something like this, we come up, right? So what was the trend here? We had this uptrend. We broke that. This instantly was selling. So 1, 2, 3, all the way down, right? So we're always counting on any of the time frames. They're all broccoli. You know, like if you cut a piece of broccoli, it's still exactly the same as the bigger one. But we see this, and this absolutely tanked. So I would say, what are the other prints in relation to this? We'd have to go back and look, right? But I'm sure there's some in here or pretty much right at the top, right? So this comes down, and where it finds support is way back here for all of these other ones where they actually got in. Now here's the signal of reversal. We have increasing volume here, and this is a thinner candle. And then we have massive, massive volume. Look at this one. And then it starts turning around. And what else we get here are more prints. Look at this. These ones here, this one was about, what's this, April. That's 10 million there. And then in August, there's another 3.7 million. So when this actually happened, and we came down, see, look, splashed in the opposite direction of this print, and then we closed above it right here. And look at this volume in this. This is this could be a seller's exhaustion too, even though the candle's green. There was so much support here, and looking left, that's a bottom. And so with these prints, we come up, and then there's more, right? We come all the way up here to another resistance level, right? If we're looking left, there's a gap and all of this. Another resistance level, and then selling back, but we got a new print, and this went up and then took profit. Now you can think it's like, well, this might be selling. We've got all the rest of the chart, right? But this is kind of like back testing and seeing how the dark pool actually functions. So when you just see one print on a chart, that doesn't mean anything. This is a great example of where they're actually adding to their position, right? They bought down here, sold up here, or sold at the right at the top, brought it all the way back down to their entry price, and we're doing it again. So we came up here, profit taking, more profit taking, back to their entry point, and now we're off to the races again. And so this here, look at this print here, moved down to support, moved in the opposite direction first, came back up, closed. Look at the volume, massive volume here, closed above, and we're off to the races. And so people flip out, right? They'll get in here, and then they'll be like, oh my God, there's a red candle. What was really helpful for me when I was learning is this is a natural pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What stage? Like, so you have a specific time frame. What stage are you in? This is natural. If you see something that's just boom, 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 up, 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 all green candles, it's like, I'm not touching it. You know, sky could be the limit, but you could also get burned quite badly. So now we have this range for where they were selling. We're consolidating from 69.60 to here. So when we see this and we have this box that's here, when you break above the box, that's when we can go long. And so you have this gap. It's like, okay, well, what's the chance of a gap fill? It's like, well, we just gapped above weeks of trading. We come back up, test it again, and then off, right? So there is room. You just got to be careful. But the overall trend here had shifted, right? So we can start drawing lines on this sort of stuff. You only need 2 points to make a line, to make a support line. 3 is better. But if we're drawing this here, if you're drawing this line from the bottom, high or low, and you come back and you set on that and it's a print, then it's like, maybe that's a good buying opportunity. What the hell, right? And the TQQQ options are actually quite good. We can back up, test it again. Increasing volume gets rejected above the print again. And then we stay in the trade. So these ones, if you're day trading, there's a couple things. It's like you can buy the stock, which might be a little more beneficial than trading the options. If you're new trading options right out of the gate, I think will be very detrimental because you have several things that are going against you. If you buy the stock, you can buy 1 share. You could buy 3 shares and scale out at different levels and learn, right? So even with the SPY, if you gave yourself $1 leeway on your stop out, or even $2 leeway on your stop out, you could only lose $6 if you lost everything. But if you're looking at options, they behave very differently, right? Because the value of the option increases or decreases based on momentum. That's the one thing. You have time decay. And then if you run into any snag, like for example, we'll switch to the 5-minute, we'll just find it. Say it's getting close to the end of the day, right? Or it's Friday and your options are expiring. Well, what they'll do is you'll see this a lot. And every 5 minutes, every tick, your options are becoming less and less valuable because they could be within 50 cents of your target, but you're losing time just from the second you get into the option. And then if there's no volatility, then they're worth less. So you have that sort of thing where your strategy has to change a little bit because you have to get into strength. So from here, if you bought this one's gonna, if you bought right here on this candle, this is, oh, 1 second, let me refresh. This is running away from me. See how this works. I'm just gonna, I'll freeze it this way. Oh, I don't know why it's doing that. 1 second. So if I've got to, maybe I can stop the, it's running away. Refresh. What I'll do is I'll hide the watch list. We'll make this bigger this way. So we see that our pre-market trades are triggering. Now, is this going to do it to me as well? Oh, it's doing it. It's doing it. 1 second. I will need to talk to the developer about that. That it's, if you zoom back too far, it runs away from you. Anyway, let me find a better example then. Maybe I'll just bring up my trading view. We'll look at it this way. We'll look at TQQQ. And this one's got pivots on it, but we'll go back a little bit. We'll talk about this. And I'll hide my pivots and cams. Anybody that looks at my chart, they're like, this is horrendous. And I would tend to agree. I've got my moving averages and stuff on there. So if we're looking at this, and we're talking about the difference in buying options and buying the stock, right? If we're going to get in, say we got in here, buying the stock, right? Well, it can come up, it can come back down here. You're not losing any time. You're not losing, whatever the price of the stock is compared to where you bought it, that's your profit or loss, right? Now, if we buy an option here and it goes up here, breaks a dollar level, for example, well, you've got a couple things working for you. One, you've got the momentum. So the volatility is going up, and that makes your option more profitable short term because of the volatility. Because essentially what you're doing is, if I bought the 84 calls and we're sitting at 82.50, and this thing rockets up there, and so say we're doing for Friday, say it's Monday and we're doing it for Friday, or it's Tuesday, we're doing it for Friday, and the ATR of the stock isn't very much. It might be $3 or something like that, but you're paying for that volatility. Because if you think about it, on the other side of the trade is, if you want to buy a call, well, somebody has to sell you that call. So they're taking the other side of the trade. And because it's volatile, then there's a higher risk to the person who sold it to you. You know, if you're going to rent a Lamborghini to a 16-year-old kid, right? You're going to want to make sure that he's double insured. So the chances of this reaching this are higher. But the thing is you've got volatility, you've got time decay, and if you have this massive upthrust here and your options are doing great, right? Because the IV's increased, the delta's increased, the gamma's increased, you've broke different thresholds of dollars and things like that. Your options are worth quite a bit. As soon as you hit the dollar level, or within a little bit, you hit the dollar level, but all of a sudden you pulled back 50 cents. It's like taking your foot off the gas, right? Well, the volatility decreases. You've lost some delta and gamma and all of that, because the price, all of that's related to the current price. And so when this retraces, you can see a lot of the value of your option disappear quicker. You would definitely lose it with the stock, but this would come down much quicker, and then the volatility and everything here, you've got this volatility goes up a little bit, but not really in your favor, not so much. And then this comes up and makes a higher high. So if you're learning, I wouldn't do options. It's a whole different level of complexity. What we need to focus on, right? So if anybody's watching my videos, at the, where we're bullish above, bearish below, I posted it up in the room today. If we're watching the videos, we have an entry point and a target, right? So if we were looking at, we'll go back and we'll look at Tesla. So here, oh, I should look at it in Moby, because in TradingView, the pivots don't come on until the market opens. I've been working on fixing that with a TradingView script. Oh, this is so we'll zoom in here a bit. Not sure if the screen capture is, oh, this thing. My Snagit has this thing. If you're, it has this thing where you can record steps. So if you click on things like making how-to videos or how-to documents and stuff like that, it records steps. I think that's what I left that running for some reason when I tried to pause. So here we've mapped out 346.01. And so now the biggest thing is to wait. You'll see this, right? I'm guilty. I'm totally guilty of this. I'll see this bullish engulfing, all of this here, right? And you're like, great, I can go 342 to 345 potentially. That might be a trade. That's possibly a trade, right? You've got to map out your stop, right? Would be below this cam, and you got to make sure that it's a good one. But I've been bored trading too. You'll see this. You'll see this. Oh my God, there's increasing volume right here, right? When you're, yeah, it's one candle. We're just off of this. It's pre-market. And so when you look left, where do we have to break below, right? It's like, okay, well, we have this here. We have these up thrusts, thinner candle, higher volume, right? So this is the roadblock we got to get below. Anyway, these were a big impulse move. And so if we break below this, maybe there's a shorting opportunity, right? But what I'm guilty of, and I've lost tons of money doing it, is if you've been sitting there trading all day and you haven't taken a trade, or you're bored, or you're hungry, or something, you've got to go walk the dog or something, right? Because what we're looking for here is increasing volume in either direction, and it has to be substantial. Okay, so it's you see volume like this, it's not a big deal. Trading pre-market can be difficult as well with the bid-ask spreads. Like, it's a lot of the stocks aren't terribly liquid. That's why we're doing 100K pre-market. We're looking for those sorts of things. So we've got this, and then this here I like. These ones are called 3-line strikes, but is this the bottom, right? Let's see if we can find one of the ones that are great. This is doing it too. Yeah, okay. If I scroll back, it messes with me. So I like these sorts of things where you're coming down to a support level, for example, increasing volume, and it starts to reverse. So if the next candle, for example, is bullish engulfing, or something like this, and then it engulfs, there might be room to the upside. But we need to actually close it. We need to actually close above our level. So we need this here, because this is a fake out, right? we need it to close above 346.01 to get in. Or we need some massive volume. We need to have tested this. We've tested it pre-market, but here we've got a lower high, right? So in order for this trend to change, because this is a little bit weak at the moment, in order for this trend to change, right? So there's your high, lower high, lower high. This is still, it's about the same, right? So we need to make a higher high. We need to get above 346.01 in this case. So we're sitting on our hands. 342.50 is a major level, which we held. And so what's your risk? If we were to short it here, we've got to put it above here. We've got to get $1.75. And then what's your risk? 342.50 to 341.50. You're risking more to make less on this. So that's why we're mapping these things out. Let's see if we can find something else to trade. I'm going to go back to our dashboard. We're going to look at our pre-market volume. And the cool thing about this, we're going to set this, there's only, at 400,000 pre-market, there's 32 trades we could look at. If we put this to 10,000, there's 386 trades. It's almost 8 o'clock. I'm an hour ahead of Eastern, so this is, it's really 7:53. That's up here. So right now, there's 386 stocks out of the 10,000 that we're tracking that have more than 10,000 in volume. And they're higher. We go by today's volume. And some of these, if you hover over them, it tells you what it is. And so this one is a Tesla 2 times bull. So if you're not happy with how fast Tesla moves, how about twice as fast, right? You could trade something like this. That's a leveraged one. I think those ones decay. I'm not 100% sure. If it's something that you actually want to trade, you can add it. It'll say add to your watch list. Whichever last watch list you have activated, you could actually add it to it from here. But it's interesting because I don't know what AIFF is. It's neuroscience. BBAI is Big Bear Holdings. So what do we have here? Hood, that's Robinhood. We all know about them. NVIDIA is down a little bit. It's not doing much. IBIT, there's massive, massive prints on IBIT. Let's look at that one, right? And they just got a few million, a couple million yesterday or something. Let's look at the daily. Here's a good example. So look at on the 12th, 1.8 million at 53.83. Now this is interesting when you look at this. 1.8 million February 12th, 53.83. The next one, December 31st, 2.5 million, 53.83. Draw the line, right? 53.83, all the way back here. You can see their line in the sand with this of the biggest prints, because here by default when you pull something up, it'll say market hours. Those are the juiciest trades. Otherwise you got to filter out some things after market, because there's a lot of ETF rebalancing. There's a lot of stuff that are, conditional on the market close, all of that, which most of the stuff we're not interested in. So we can add these to the chart, but we can change our time frame. We could say, okay, this is in the last year. I could say all, or 6 months, or 90 days. So if I went in the last 3 months, those are the largest trades in the last 3 months. So that might be better. We wouldn't have, yeah, and even this, the 53.83 on the bottom is actually showing. So you can see here, if you drew a box around this, they're buying in the lower third, they're manipulating in the middle, and they're selling at the top. You can see all of these here if we were to draw a box around that. But now we came down to the 53.83 and held. There was more. There was more there. So if we close below this 53.83, then that's another 5 million. And this being a Bitcoin ETF trust, if you look at the Bitcoin chart, Now, because with the, you know, there's 10 ETFs for the for Bitcoin now, and so now the big banks and financial institutions can directly manipulate the price. You could see that, like on Twitter, people are flipping out over it. Why is, you know, and you kind of got to laugh. It's like, why hasn't XRP hit $10,000 overnight? You know, things like that. And where's our bull cycle? Where's the altcoins? All of this. It's like, I think this sort of stuff is a gift. Although the crypto market is starting to become pretty manipulated as the big players get into it. There wasn't a lot of interest the last by the institutions the last bull cycle, but this time there is, right? You know, Bitcoin's at 100 grand, and you know, you've got MicroStrategy, you've got all of these sorts of things. You've got massive institutions that are interested in this, and this is how you can manipulate the price, is by trading the ETF, because they're all linked together, right? So Bitcoin Trust is Bitcoin. And so you've got the inflows and outflows of this. So this is really interesting, even though, like, I could buy this and hold it or whatever the deal is, or I could trade Bitcoin. I don't actively trade cryptos like the futures or anything. I have done it. I'm too busy with Moby and things. My brother does a lot of crypto trading. And anyway, here, if I'm not going to trade this, you can tell where the crypto market's going to go. If this is bearish, then Bitcoin's bearish. And then that affects the whole crypto market, right? And so there's 10 different ETFs. I'm trying to think of them. There's this one, there's SBIT, there's a few others. I think that's what it is. I had the whole list of them. But anyway, what we're looking at here is, if we look at this, we're just really trading in a range, right? Top to bottom, there's our range. Although it's a $9 range on a $55 stock. So we'd actually have to plan our entry. So this held this last time we tested this 53.83, massive upthrust, but we came up to the 4 and the 8 EMA, and that was it, down the hill again. And notice this is appearing bearish down to this point. Now, if we close above this 8 EMA on the daily, then we can start pushing back up again. But the benefit of the dark pool is seeing where they're buying and selling. If we're there, then what's this, 56.87? So there's $2 on the daily, at least, because we're at 54.50, and then we've got a 1.5 million here at 56.87, and then this is resistance, and then top of the channel, right? So we could just draw a box around that. And institutions, if you draw a box around something like this, they only sell in the top quarter, top third, and they only buy in the bottom quarter, bottom third, right? So you'll see stuff like this. These are liquidity sweeps, I would think. You come all the way there, and there's probably prints back here around 50.73, and we could check. I'm going to sort by price, highest to lowest, and let's see if there's anything around 50. Might have to go back a little farther. Let's we'll go all. And see if there's anything around this level, 50 to 52. There's 52 there. 51. 53. There's a million at 53.71. So you can see how heavily manipulated this is on that. So watching this, if you're trading Bitcoin, that can be quite interesting. This looks like a failed inverted head and shoulders, if I'm not mistaken. You've got this, there's a shoulder, there's a head, kind of a shoulder, and then down. But usually with that, what do you call a failed head and inverse head and shoulders? You call it a double top, right? If we look at where these candles are closing, you can see all the wicks sticking up above, right? That's where there's selling. So these are zones you can actually mark. And when people are doing their technical analysis, some of them don't just draw the line. They'll draw a box around the wicks because those are liquidity zones. That's where people are planning to sell or get stopped out. So if we were short and it broke above this level, for example, then we would get stopped out only for it to go against us, right? So there's that with that. So I'm going to see, let's see. Oh, and thanks. So Tio is 7:30. Oh, he said that half an hour ago. Just wondering if there's anybody here that can hear me. I've been talking because there was at least one person in the room. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a break for a little bit, and I'm going to be back around 10 a.m. Eastern. I've got supposed to be on the mic at 11 a.m. Eastern. I have an appointment to take my my mom asked me at the last minute. Her ride to her doctor's appointment got canceled, so I'm going to have to nip out a little bit early. So I apologize for having to push the meeting back, but I'll come and I'll spend half an hour with you guys at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then I've got to hop in the car and take my mother to the doctor. All right, so yeah, we'll share the video shortly. Take care.